Welcome to Created Healthy. I'm Dawn Combs. It's a common idea that God gave us everything we need in nature, but do we believe it enough to walk that out in truth? Often the very same people who say this go looking for answers on how to use food and medicine from man-made sources. Everything man creates comes with a user's manual. Why would God be any different? I challenge you to join me in seeking revelation about our body, mind, soul, and spirit health by digging into His written word and in practicing pure science in the visible world of His creation. Yesterday, I started talking about power structures and this notion of why a king is a wicked problem in that power structure. Today I am in 1 Samuel 12 through 14, and this continues. It's a two-parter, really. Yesterday we were talking about what happens, what the king is going to ask of the people, this diversion of resources, the diversion of splitting of focus for adoration and obeying. And today there's a second aspect to be looked at here. Samuel stands before the people and says, the history of how Israel have strayed and cried out, and God has heard. And he says again, it's evil that you have wanted a king instead of God. And I'm cautioning you that this is a very, very dangerous path to follow down. He then goes into two very big if-then statements, which is it's a mathematical logic here, and it's really the second part of this mutual contract of taking on a king that you're going to divert your adoration away from God to. But this is the second part of the threat. So Samuel says, if you will fear the Lord and serve him and listen to his voice and not rebel against the Lord's commands, then both you and your king will follow God. So he's saying, you people who have taken on a king have a responsibility to be listening to God, to be following God. You cannot abdicate this. You can't give your power away and then wander along as children who have no responsibilities. Having a king doesn't make your life easier. It's actually going to complicate it because you still have the same responsibility to follow and listen to God. He has another if then. If you won't listen to the voice of the Lord, but you rebel his command, then the hand of the Lord will be against you, just like you've seen in this history that I've laid out of your fathers. And so as a demonstration, he says, hey, now's the wheat harvest. And you really need to understand the awesome power that God has. And remember that God has the ability to destroy you because he is so powerful and deserves our adoration for turning and caring for us. And he calls on God to reign. And this is the death knell for a wheat harvest. You don't want rain when you're ready to harvest. You need it to be dry. And so this rain destroys the wheat crop. And the people realize, oh yes, it's a wicked deed. We have taken on what we've asked for isn't what we meant. And I'm sure we've all been there where we thought what we were asking for was it was going to make our life easier. And it was going to allow us to have this, just lean back and let others do for us. This is the whole problem in our American culture right now, is we are listening to this siren song of free time and no life of ease. You shouldn't have to work or labor. Oh goodness, the kitchen, you shouldn't have to work in there. That's terrible. And our health and our happiness, our mental stability, our children's futures are all going down the drain because ease is not what it seems. Bringing in a king for Israel does not mean now they're living in the land of luxury, and all they have to do is just follow whatever the king says, and the king will do all their thinking for them. We can't get out of this. We can't get out of honoring God. And Saul starts his reign, and it says that he was 30 when he started. He did 42 years, and he starts doing exactly what Samuel said. He starts taking people to assemble his army, and now those people aren't focused on their land, and they aren't focused on their families. They're focused on being good soldiers and following orders of a king. All of the resources that are brought to bear, gathering chariots and horsemen, and they go up against an army, and there is victory again. And when we get to this moment, it is telling, just like that sign that Saul saw that he was really supposed to be the king. Jonathan makes a stupid covenant with his people, and he's marching them. And instead of allowing them to eat and sleep and rest, he wants them to work. Gosh, I feel like I'm speaking about today. Productivity. You gotta produce. It doesn't matter. Run yourself ragged for the greater good, for the profit line. This is what Saul is doing. He's driving his armies, and they're exhausted and starving, and they don't perform well. And his son Jonathan comes upon some honey in the forest, and Saul has said, no one can eat until the evening, or I have vanquished my enemies. And everybody's following that, but Jonathan eats some honey, and Saul has cursed. He uses the power of his mouth to create this curse for anybody that does this. And we've seen this where men in other stories have made foolish promises to God and then had to carry it out. The one who promised that the first thing that comes out of his house after a victory he'll sacrifice comes to mind. Here is Saul doing this, making the same mistake. And after they come against this army and they're all settled again, there's problems, and he says, all right, who did it? What's going wrong? Why aren't we having a good time here? And he casts lots, and he finds that Jonathan has eaten the honey when he had made this curse. And the people say twice here, do whatever seems good to you. Saul is all about making sure that everybody likes him, that the crowd appreciates him, that the poll numbers are saying he's popular. He's all about that. He's all focused on that. He's not focused on what God is saying is right. And God says we have to be careful with our words because we have to honor them. They are powerful. They are important. And especially as a king leading all of Israel, if your word doesn't mean anything, if you are known that you're going to say something and then go against it when it's unpopular or uncomfortable, you've lost everything. And that's what happens here. He has people saying, do what seems good to you, and that's what he does. And he loses God's will, he loses God's favor, and this is where his kingdom departs. And it's the second part of the danger of bringing a king over a people, bringing a leader that is going to require allegiance and divert resources that are God's away from God to honor and prop up this leader, is that the people have to hold the line. When they said, do what's good, what you think is good, they just want somebody else to think. They just wanted Saul to think for them. They didn't want to say the difficult thing. They didn't want to stand in God's truth. They didn't want to hold him to the horror of what he had said. They weren't following God, and therefore their king didn't follow God. And just Just as Samuel had said, if you won't listen to the voice of the Lord, if you rebel against his commands, then the hand of the Lord will be against you, like your fathers. And it's really difficult to realize that you have responsibilities when you try to give away your power and when you try to give away your autonomy in the face of, in exchange for this seemingly perfect life of ease. It's a trap. And Israel is definitely in a trap here, and we will see what happens from here. I pray that God is blessing you today and that he brings you back to keep reading through the Bible with me. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe and share with a friend. And I'm always interested in hearing what God is laying on your heart. So drop me a rating or review, or join the conversation on Facebook, Instagram, or YouTube at Dawn Combs Really.